us. And for more, we can cross to our Washington correspondent, Kethevane Gorjestani. So, Kethevane, as usual, Donald Trump is breaking his own news on this, and some would say trying to control the narrative. What does this mean for Donald Trump?
Well, as Donald Trump said, he has received that target letter. And what that means is that he was notified by the special counsel that he is directly the target of that investigation into what happened on before and on January 6th. But that doesn't mean he has been technically formally charged or formally indicted. This letter means that, first of all, the investigation into January 6th is nearing its end. And second of all, that the special counsel and that grand jury are probably very likely considering indicting him. But he has gotten that opportunity, that invitation to appear before a grand jury. It is expected, according to people around the former president, that he will not be taking up the special counsel on that invitation to appear and to give his side of the story, basically, to the grand jury before that grand jury decides actually to indict him or not. Now, as far as the charges go, we don't really know yet because we haven't seen that letter, that target letter, which could give some information about what those charges might be if the grand jury decides to indict. But experts here believe that they will probably focus around two main charges. One is the attempted obstruction of an official proceeding. This, of course, the electoral college vote count and the certification of Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 election. That's the official proceeding that was obstructed. And the other one would be the conspiracy to defraud the government. That would be potentially something around that fake electors scheme, a scheme to have some electors that were not official to try to certify different results in different states. So these are what we're going to be looking at if indeed Donald Trump is in the end indicted officially.
So, Kethevane, what does this mean for the 2024 presidential race? You know, Trump remains the leading candidate, and he's been known to use this kind of prosecution against him for fodder for his campaign.
Well, in the short term, if we look at what has happened with his previous indictment, the indictment in New York in that hush money payment case, and the indictment in Miami in the classified documents case, right after these two indictments, he had a significant bump, both in the polls and in his fundraising. So as you said, you're right, he definitely counts on that, to use that to rally his troops. He uses this to say that he is the victim of a targeted political interference by Joe Biden, that he is the number one political opponent. That's why he's being targeted, and that really works with his base. Now, in the long term, that might be a little bit different just because of the timetable. Let's say he is actually indicted in this January 6th investigation. He could also potentially be facing an indictment next month in Georgia, this time for his attempt to influence and ask officials in that state of Georgia to overturn the results of that state in the 2020 election. And that would mean potentially 4 different trials in 4 different jurisdictions, and those trials would not be able to happen at the same time because American citizens have a right to be present at their trials, so they would have to be happening separately, and that would definitely interfere with his ability to campaign, to go to these different primary states next year, to attend some rallies, to hold rallies across the country. So that is something that could come into play. So he could use it, but it will definitely make things more difficult for him as far as campaigning goes in 2024.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say this is gearing up to be like an election campaign that we've never seen before. Our Washington correspondent, Kethevane Gorjestani. Kethevane, thanks as always.